Hey guys, it's Slacker here, bringing you an updated version of the level creation tutorial from scratch, and just get right into it. So there's three components of a level in Torchlight 2. There's the layout, which is what you actually see in the game and in the editor. These are usually part of a level rule set, well, always part of a level rule set if they're in the game. And level rule sets kind of piece together layouts and are used for either making custom, single layout levels like you would see in a town or something, or random levels that are multiple layouts kind of uh, pieced together like a puzzle almost. Yeah. And level rule sets are sort of encapsulated in dungeons. Dungeons let you have multiple rule sets and connect them and give some other rules that we'll probably see as we go through the tutorial. So let's just start up guts, and I will just do everything. I'm not gonna skip any steps. So creating a mod, when you see this dialog, just hit new. I'll name it test 0, and this will be my first time loading it up today, so it might take a minute. So the usual order of operations for creating a level is to first create the rule set, and then create the layout, and then create the dungeon, and finally connect the dungeon to somewhere in the world. Like I said, there could be multiple rule sets in your dungeon, there could be multiple layouts in your rule set, so that's why there's a parenthesized S there. Things that the dungeon handles, it handles spawning, it handles uh, things like what the parent town or dungeon would be. So basically, if you did make a randomized level, if you went through an entrance or an exit, where would it lead to? So the dungeons kind of tell the game where the level is in the world of Torchlight 2. So I'm sure if you've messed around with guts at all, you've seen this screen here, and this is what the first layer of a level is, and that is the layout. But first, let's just create the rule set, because otherwise you're gonna create the layout and then you're gonna have to move the layout into a folder that we'll be creating, and it just kind of adds another step for no real reason. So creating a rule set, I would recommend creating your own folder. I'll just name mine test 0 layouts. So I don't forget that I named everything test 0. And this will just be called rules. Let's try to find that now. Okay. Oh, did it get created? I'll just create. Yeah, it didn't get created for some reason. My test 0 layout. Oh, probably because I didn't put the rule set inside. So the reason that you'd want to create your own folder is just because once you do, you can kind of just, muscle memory remember exactly, how far it is in the dialogue, and just quickly go to any rule sets that you make, as long as you put them in that folder. And also kind of just helps you separate them from all the other rule sets when you're just glancing at it. But alright, so let's just name it test 0. Test 0, just everything will be named test 0. A lot of this stuff, you don't really want to just randomly go about it. Like, see, so like this right here, share textures arrow trail.dds. You don't want to have your shadow fade have that texture. I don't think it was meant or designed to have that, even though it's an option. So just be careful. Typically, you just want to find like a a rule set that you think would work well with the layout that you're making, and then just copy that one, paste it, and you'll have all that information for your level. But I think for right now we'll just leave it blank. I don't really see a reason to add anything. Hopefully it doesn't break the level, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Alright, so you want to go to chunk types. Chunk types and layout we'll get to in a second, but for right now, you just want to create a folder after you hit open folder in chunk types. And just name that folder 1x1E. Let me just make sure that's correct. Yeah. So what this is when random levels are made, I'm pretty sure how it works is like they'll randomly fill these in, and E tells it that there's an exit to the right, to the east. So if they wanted to have that chunk connect to another chunk or another layout, then they would find one that is 1x1 west, and then those two would combine, or west and south, or west and north, or whatever, if you wanted it to just keep snaking through or something. But so that's basically why there's a 1x1E. A lot of these folder names, there is like 1x1 single room, but it's really doesn't make any difference, so you might as well just use the shortest one to type, which is 1x1E. It's mostly just used for randomization. That's why there's all these different folders, and unfortunately that is a side effect of needing to create the folder for specific levels as well. But let's save that rule set. I recommend always kind of clicking off of whatever dialogue you're on and going back to it just to make sure that it's saved and everything. Sometimes it won't. And let's just create a rule set or a layout real quick. So to like add stuff to your level, there's two different main palettes, they call them. There's a room piece palette, and there's the layout link palette. Layout link palette has a lot of like particle effect stuff, like fancier type stuff. I can just show you something real quick. And the room palette has a lot of the more basic stuff. So you'll see all the stuff. Typically, you just want, well, for right now, we just want the floor. You can like search for different things. Tundra is kind of your basic grass level. You have forest, which is like the woodsy level. Gotten to that point in the game. Catacombs. So a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory, and named well. But there are some that are just completely empty, and pretty sure they're just relics of the Torchlight 1 game. Alright, so just make a little thing here. The player, I believe by default, just spawns in the very center of this grid that you see. You don't need to fill the grid or even use it as a reference at all if you don't want to. But it's just want to make a quick default level, then pretty useful. Alright, so we're gonna save this. To save the level, you just go to the file, save as, and we want to save it into that 1x1E folder that we created, because that is where our rule set will look for. Oh, it did save the layout thing, the folder that we made. That's where our rule set will look for the levels that we can use in the rule set. And this is kind of where big disconnect for a lot of people is that it's not very intuitive at all that this is how levels are made. And until they released the tutorials, this was sort of a huge barrier to people trying to create dungeons for the game. Alright, so we'll just name it Test Zero. Why not? Everything else is. Alright, so let's just make sure that the rule set finds it, and we'll add it to the rule set. I think if they just named it something other than rule set, something more intuitive sounding, then it would have been a lot easier to figure out. But unfortunately, they went with level rule set and included all this stuff with it that kind of convoluted everything. So, okay, so just to go over what I just did, sync from folders will kind of look through the folder where the rule set's kept and find all the folders for levels. So if you wanted to make your own random levels, like just to kind of quickly go over the whole randomization thing that I was talking about. Say this is east here. I'm not actually sure, but I don't see any kind of compass. Say this is east here. If you were to make a 1x1 east dungeon and you wanted to, have it be a component of a larger random level, then you would have some kind of connector, like a bridge, like a land bridge or something. And then this would connect to, if you saved a different layout as 1x1 west and had it like this, so then when you finally see the two levels together, they would be connected by like a 2-tile bridge here, and then this section here connecting on either side. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, and then you can just imagine that with north and south and all the complicated random levels that you see in the game itself. But anyway, you'll kind of get an idea of that right now, where we actually add the level to the layout, so to speak. It's unfortunate to name both things layout, but it's the way it goes. So okay, so after you have your chunk type and the inclusive chunks, I believe I only said sync folders. So sync folders finds everything, all the folders, and then you go to modify on the right side, because inclusive chunks are the ones that you want in your level. Say that you have like 20 different 1x1 east layouts and you only want to use 5 of them, then this gives you that flexibility. But for us, we just want to include the one layout that we have. And once you have your screen looking like this, you go to layout and you create a new explicit layout. And this is where the game kind of physically knows what it's supposed to do when this rule set's loaded. It'll see that in the very center of this grid, I'm supposed to put this one layout here, and then I'll go to this folder, and then I'll be like, okay, 1x1 east, that's what I'm trying to place here. And so we'll place one of these random chunks, and the only chunk that we actually have is test 0, so we'll place that test 0. And that's not the majority, but it's a pretty big part of the level. Dungeon has a very big say in how levels are made as well, due to the spawn classes and everything. So go to data editors again, go down to dungeons, and now we just create a dungeon, call it test 0. Luckily all the file extensions are different names, so you can just name everything test 0 and it won't have any kind of overwrite problems. Okay, so we want to save it. And strata. So strata are the different rule sets. And it's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Strata have things like, the rule set, spawn class, etc. And if you were to make like a multi-level random dungeon with different rule sets, then you would have multiple strata, and they would all be connected in that way. So just create a strata. You just hit the plus here, and name your dungeon. You don't really need a parent town. It's recommended just because if you want to use the same test character and maybe buy a bunch of warp scrolls or something, and you can warp out, not have to worry about rolling a new character every time or something like that. Okay, so yeah, parent town is Asterian City, is the Act 1 city. Alright, so we have our strata, and now we just select the rule set that we had before. I believe by default it goes to the very bottom, so that's convenient. And then you just have all these options. I'm not going to go into detail on any of them. You can look on the wiki. There's just a lot of good info. Um, champion spawns, monster spawns. Then there's like creep spawns, which is pretty cool. Fish spawn and prop spawns. I think defaults to like barrels and stuff. So I believe in our test dungeon here, we'll see some barrels. But okay, just make sure everything's saved. Yeah, click off, and then see right here. Unfortunately, it didn't save that strata, so if we just tried to load the level, it would actually have just crashed the game. So let's try that again. Hit save, make sure that it's saved, and there we go. I'm kind of glad that happened because it's important to note. You don't want to have your game crashing and not know why. It's really frustrating. Okay, so we've completed these 3 steps. Created the rule set first, then we created the layout, and then we just created the dungeon. I recommend looking through the wiki, learning what all those different variables are, and getting a good feel for all that stuff. And now we only have to connect it to the actual world. So we're going to go to the Act 1 city and just add a NPC that teleports us into our dungeon. I'm not going to go into great detail about the scripting, the logic stuff in the guts editor, but I'm going to quickly just go over what I'm doing so you understand. Alright, so we go to layouts, go to Act 1 town. That's the Styrian city, and it's the first one that you go to in the game. And once this loads, we're just gonna add we'll add it's called a unit trigger instead of an NPC. Unit triggers are just like things that the player can activate, and useful for just any kind of puzzles or things like that. Very useful for those. They're like levers and things. So unit triggers, you want to just select a model. You can look in the properties tab. So let's just see. Doesn't really matter what we pick, but preferably it's something that can be used multiple times, like a portal. Because if it can't be, then you end up exhausting. You have to add like extra logic to make it so that you can use it multiple times, or it'll just be used once and then that's it. Portal doesn't seem to work right now. Let's see, you can use, let's do waypoint portal, waygate portal. It should give us like a particle effect if it like activated. Fortunately, all of the ones that I'm picking are not ideal. Well, we could just do enter dungeon, I guess. Yeah, that works. So the player will see like an icon. I think that we can actually pick the text, so you can like rename it, like go to test 0, and even with unit triggers and stuff, you want to kind of click off and make sure that it got added. So just add a logic group, and then to use logic groups, like edit them and everything, you go to view external tool up here. Another sort of counterintuitive thing. Yeah. So we drag our unit trigger into the logic group, and we also create a warper. Warpers are just used to go between dungeons. And we want, so when the unit trigger is triggered, we want it to activate the warper. And that's just all the logic to what we're doing. Now we just make the warper have a destination, and that's dungeon name. So I think that's everything. Just save this. you want to save. So when you edit a town or anything like that, you want to save it to the mod directory. You do not want to save it to the base. Otherwise, you're overwriting the game's actual files, and that will cause a lot of problems. Okay, so now we just got to build it. You go to the mods tab and then you just go to mod up here, package and publish. We don't want it published to Steam or any of that stuff. Build. Alright, let's just make sure that we have everything. So, logic group, when it's triggered, activate the warper. Warper goes to test 0. Dungeon's name is test 0. Our strata uses the rule set from my test 0 rule sets. Name test 0. Rule sets. Test 0 rule sets. Okay, so it seems like everything's in order. The only problem maybe is that we didn't fill any of that stuff in. Chunks and all that is set up. Okay, so it looks like everything should be good to go. We'll see it now. Alright, save all this stuff. I don't know why I have all these activated actually. Synergies, high loot. Okay, test 0. Yeah, so you just want to select whatever you named your mod in the while you were building it. I think it just defaults to the folder name that you gave it when you first created the mod. Alright, so we'll just create a new guy and run through. Test lady, I think I already have a test lady, so doesn't really matter for this casual or whatever, but if you're, balancing your mod in some way, then you want it to
I think this is as far.
well, hopefully you have a character already. Otherwise, well, there's probably cheats or something. I've actually never used them. But yeah, you just want to create a character, a test character that's relevant to your mod. Buy all these ratlins. Is definitely gonna die. Alright, we're at the Enclave. Now hopefully our go to test 0. Let's see. Will it crash? I shouldn't be in full screen. I like to live life on the edge. I recommend testing all your mods in windowed mode, just in case something goes horribly wrong. Okay, so as you'll see, the dungeon's actually in the game. And it has the default spawning stuff, so there's no monsters, but there are like barrels and things like that, as you can see. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's how to make a level from start to finish. Hopefully you found this useful and more clear than the previous version, and thanks for watching. Bye.